Teaching tool or cheating method? ChatGPT is already being used by students and people all over the world. Now there's Google's Bard app, and Bing is using it in some of their search features. How can we use this artificial intelligence appropriately? Joining us now to talk about this, live, Dr. Joseph Atman, the Executive Director of Middle Tree, a nonprofit education center in Sacramento. There's a lot of pros and cons to this, doctor, so let's start out with the pros. It can be a teaching tool, right?
It absolutely can. If we use it as a tool and a guide, that's incredibly useful. But I think it has to enhance what's already there, not necessarily replace it, right? And I think that's the big fear that everyone has.
I've heard on some interviews before, some college professors telling their kids, go ahead and use it, but if you get anything less than an A, this better be a dang good essay, because now there's no excuse for not having a good essay. Basically forcing the teaching part on them. Is that the appropriate way to go about it, or is there a better way to introduce this to students where we can counteract the cheating part of this?
Yeah, it's a really good question, right? And I think that's what everyone is kind of struggling with right now, is how to balance it within what it is that we already implement within a curriculum and within a school day. I mean, it's a convenient way to do a lot of things. There's good things about it, given that it can really personalize the learning process for us. It can save us some time, but I think the dangers here are that it could replace our faculties and our capacities. Like, students no longer have to necessarily know how to write. You can tell ChatGPT, write me a 5-paragraph essay on fill in the blank, and it'll do that. You don't have to necessarily do a whole lot of research anymore. There's a lack of what we call in education that socio-emotional well-being, that students have that human-to-human contact, but AI may come to really replace that very, very soon. I think the biggest one, however, is that if we rely too heavily on AI, it takes away our own human capacity to think for ourselves, to be creative, and to interact with the world and our own minds directly, right? Well, and that's sort of the beauty about being a human being is it's the discovery. We're not always perfect. We're seldom perfect. But there's something that you gain when you fail. There's a lot of value, a lot of lessons through our failure, through our struggles. And that's sort of what learning is. When you say, tell me about something, that's not necessarily learning in its highest form. You're taking information in from what you perceive to be an authority. But when you truly learn, you're really engaging with the subject. And we want to preserve that engagement as educators.
Well, that's the important part. The face-to-face learning and the critical thinking skills, I think, is important, because sometimes ChatGPT can be wrong, or some of these can be incorrect in their grabbing information off the internet. So like what you said there, for teachers or anyone or parents out there, you need to, use it, understand it, but understand its weaknesses and use it as a teaching tool. If you're going to write an essay, let them write it, then you look at it critically and go from there. Dr. Atman, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We could spend a half an hour on this topic. There's so much to discuss here. I appreciate it, and we'll hopefully see you here in the future. That was a great subject. I appreciate it, Doctor. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.